Anybody who comes to your house or to a property that you're investing in and starts out at a super high number, and by the time the conversation is over an hour and a half later, they've dropped that price by 25, 30%. That's a big red flag. If you've got two different contractors bidding on a job and you want to know, is this fair? I would like to see their scope of service, because they may have cut something out that we would say, here's what's going to happen again in 18 months. You're going to be right back to where you started from. So it's super important to make sure that you are comparing apples to apples.
Hey, what's going on? This is Brett Snodgrass with another episode of the Indie Investor Podcast. Got a good buddy on the podcast with me today, Mr. Mike Lawson. What's going on, Mike?
Hey, Brett, how are you? Good morning.
Good morning, man. Super excited to have you on the podcast today. Really excited to dive in what we're going to be talking about today, guys. Mike Lawson is the Director of Business Development at Hitman Solutions. Love the name. You
Yeah.
guys, you guys assassinate anybody?
Well, we get calls periodically, if we can take somebody out. But the truth of the matter is, when we started the company, it was initially a mold remediation company. And so we came up with a tagline: call us and we'll kill your mold. Thus,
Oh,
the name Hitman was born. And it just kind of stuck, and it gets a lot of attention. And that's been good for our business growth. So lots
oh,
of good jokes, and it's a
yes.
good opening.
That's right. That's right. Just a quick side story. My very first company, when I started buying and selling homes, I had a daughter named Kaylin and didn't know what to call the company. So, I made it the most complicated company name to explain to someone. It was Kaylin with a dash, the letter N with a dash, with a company with a spelled with a start with a K. So Kalen dash N dash company with a K. Uh, that was my company. So, anyways, I had to explain that every.
And when
uh,
and when and when did that go under? No, I'm just kidding.
um, it's a good real estate business name, so that's all right. Hey, so Mike, super excited to have you on in the Investor Podcast today. We're, on this podcast, we talk about Indianapolis real estate in all different facets. I know you come from the contracting world as far as like right now, but that's not maybe your background. Can you just give the audience a little bit? Who is Mike Lawson? Like, what's some of your background? Because I know you didn't come from maybe the construction style background, right?
No, I didn't actually. So I'm a Indy born and reared guy. Been here my whole life. Love Central Indiana. And I when I graduated college, I actually went into public service, and my degree was in political science. It was a liberal arts degree, and I wanted to give back to my community, and I enjoyed public service. So I got involved with a city, and became their with the city the first time was economic development director, to help to encourage new growth in the city. And then I was appointed deputy mayor and kept that position for about 10 years.
Nice.
So I really enjoyed public service, but my wife and I had kids, started a family, and public service, while it can be very fulfilling in many ways, there's not a lot of money in it. And so I decided I needed to make some more money, because I figured these kids are going to grow up and they're going to, need things. So I ended up switching and getting involved with utilities, and ran the city's water and sewer utility for a couple of years, and then formed a company where we actually did a purchase of that utility. And so we I became a utility president, managed the water and sewer utility for several years, and then we ended up selling that agreement back to the city. And after that, bought an advertising company, and started getting involved in advertising. Loved it, helping small businesses grow through advertisement. And then next thing that happened, I ended up getting involved in contracting work. Went to work for a company in business development. who did emergency services, basically, anything from fires to floods to a car running through a building, and having the appropriate crews to go out and make the necessary repairs and get people back into their homes. And that led to this current position with Hitman Solutions, where as director of business development, we specialize in three core areas, which foundation repair, basement waterproofing, and mold remediation. Those are the three things we do. The vast majority of our business today are active real estate transactions. Somewhere between 60-70% of what we do are active real estate transactions. We are a preferred vendor for many, many, many real estate companies throughout central Indiana. And I deal with literally thousands of realtors a year, helping them and their clients to have a smooth closing. In particular, when something pops up in an inspection, we get it taken care of, and then help them get to closing and make sure that that client has a safe, clean home environment to move into.
No, I love that. That's awesome. Well, I want to talk about, yeah, just preferred vendors and investors out there. I mean, it is so important to have a preferred vendor list, people that you can go to when you need a handyman, a maintenance guy, an HVAC guy, a foundation guy, mold remediation. In this business, you're always going to have things pop up, right? I know I'm dealing with a lot right now, whether you have rental properties, flips, or even you know wholesale properties. Maybe you're not doing the work, but you need recommendations to give to the person that would be rehabbing the property and flipping the property. So we're going to spend the majority of our time on today, guys, is how do we vet contractors? How do we get choose the right people and preferred vendors? Mike, I'll ask you this. Indianapolis real estate. When I'm in a property and we're rehabbing the property, and the things that will kill us or kill the budget, and just kind of sink us or take us down a little bit, or some of these big ticket items, things that which sometimes are difficult to see when it comes to big ticket items like a foundation or mold or major repairs. Things like structural. So how do and I've seen a lot of people get burned in this particular area. So uh, we were talking the other day, and if we're selling a house and the inspector goes into that particular house and he comes back and flags, and he just says just one little comment, there is a foundation problem. All the hands go up, money just flies out the window. We've lost so much money on this deal because of that one particular comment. That's what everyone thinks, and that's what everyone feels because of and the inspector said there is a foundation problem, and we don't know where to go to get that. So how do people that maybe have some of these bigger ticket items like foundation problem not get just totally sunk and totally burned?
Well, it's an excellent question, and I can certainly understand why. When somebody says foundation problem, all of a sudden, all these red flags go up because it's scary, right? I mean, your foundation. That's. I mean, that's the basis for the entire structure. So if there's a problem with the foundation, I can see why that would raise red flags. But the truth of the matter is, oftentimes when a foundation problem is suspected, the fix is very, very simple. And I'm just going to be real honest with you guys in this discussion. Now I'm not sneezing at $5,000 or $7,000, but I'm going to tell you that um, at our company, I mean, our average repair for a foundation issue, you're right about $7,000. We're not talking $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. And I have to tell you, you got to remember, that's the average. I see foundation repairs come through our company every day that are 1,250, 1,450, $2,200. Really prices that are manageable when you're looking at investing in a property. And the reason for that is oftentimes water is the single biggest issue why you might have a foundation problem.
Mhm.
Maybe a gutter has fallen off one side of the house, and it's been off for, a year or 18 months or longer. And every time the rain comes and that water runs down that roof, it's just going right down onto the side of the house. And the ground has eroded right there, and it's caused an air pocket because we have, obviously in the summer, soil gets really dry, then it starts getting wet and compacted. You can get pockets down there. Water seeps in there, and next thing you've cracked the foundation, or there's been a significant erosion problem there, and that's caused a problem. Most of the time, by simply fixing what caused that problem, getting the ground filled again and making sure that's covered, most of the time that'll handle the issue.
Mhm.
If that foundation has sunk in one spot because there's been an extensive or long-term water problem, we can fix that with putting in a push pier. If a basement wall is bowing in, if it's less than 2-3 inches, we can put a carbon fiber strap on that wall, which will secure that wall. So
Mhm.
there are a lot of fixes that certainly aren't 10, 12, 15, 20, $30,000. I will tell you, we have seen in central Indiana, we've been called out on properties where maybe a repair had been made, and the owner had spent $25,000 and they were still having an issue. And we go out and look at it and say, well, first of all, what was done wasn't needed. And secondly, to have fixed this right the first time was probably $8 or $9,000, not $25,000. And this is where we get into making sure that you're dealing with a reputable contractor.
Mhm.
If you've ever had a car that's out of warranty, so you're no longer taking it to the dealer, and next thing you know, it needs, general maintenance, or, it's making a funny noise, or the check engine light comes on. I hear this all the time. People think, well, I need a really good mechanic. I need somebody that I can trust, right?
Mhm.
Because I don't know anything about the car. I'm going
Yeah.
to have to trust that this guy, what he's telling me is accurate. And so, you want to look for a recommendation.
Mhm.
You want to go online. You want to talk with, if you've got some real estate friends, who do they use? Check out the reviews with companies. I wouldn't recommend that you use somebody who's got, maybe is doing this as a side gig.
Mhm.
You want somebody who's reputable, because that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be more expensive, but it does mean that that work is going to be warranted, and most of the time that work is going to be done correctly. And I just said something there, warranty. That's also super important. Make sure you're dealing with somebody who's going to be around, and when they warranty their work and that warranty is transferable to another owner, that's important to have. And one last thing I'll say is that, maybe you're dealing with a crawl space issue. Well, most people don't get into crawl spaces.
Mhm.
We get into crawl spaces every single day. We've got 5 full-time inspectors and a sixth who does it. He's actually our GM, who also inspects. So we really have 6 full-time inspectors, and they get into crawl spaces all day long. They will videotape and show you exactly what they see in that crawl space. And then they'll explain to you, here's what needs to be done to resolve the issue, whether it's a waterproofing issue, whether it's a foundation issue, whether it's a biological growth issue, which is what they call mold now, because nobody, a realtor or an inspector can't say it's mold because, he didn't do a test on it. He just calls it a
Mhm.
biological growth. But when you've got somebody who's giving you videotaped evidence of what's going on, and then telling you these are the recommendations we are going to make to fix this problem, you can research that online yourself and make sure that what you're being told is accurate.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. No, I love that. I love that. Well, my next question, when it comes to these just contractors, so again, someone has like kind of a major job, major issue, and they're getting ready to hire someone. You're getting ready to hire a contractor. What are some things they need to really look for first before hiring that person? Because I know that there's an emotional component to this. I got this issue. I know I need to fix it. Maybe there's water coming in, and what's that look like? So I'm starting to panic, and taking the time to bring out five different quotes or three different quotes and talking to a lot of people. It's a lot of work. So I really want to just maybe shorten the learning curve. We're like, hey, what are things I really need to look for to find that qualified contractor?
Sure. I think first and foremost, word of mouth. If
Mhm.
you know someone who has used a particular contractor, that's going to be your best case scenario. If you're in the real estate investing business, develop professional relationships with other investors who maybe have used someone before. That would be number one. Number two would, we people talk about there's so many benefits and so many negatives about the internet that we have today, but going online and looking at these folks' reviews, you'll get a real good picture. Now, look. Nobody can please everybody 100% of the time. There's going to be somebody
Right.
who's going to be disappointed about something, and you're going to see a negative review. But
Yeah.
in keeping that in context, if somebody's got two or three bad reviews and they've got, you know, 200 5-star reviews. Okay, so what's really the picture there? A few people just couldn't be satisfied. And then
Mhm.
also looking at in those reviews, and you can certainly contact the Better Business Bureau. You can go on Reddit. You can look at these things, but also look at what did the company do for those folks who were bothered or maybe didn't feel satisfied, and how did the company react to that? Did they go back out? Did they go out and try and solve the problem, or did they blow the customer off? So I mean, there's a
Right.
lot of ways to look at that, and this is just my take on this, but you see somebody on TV and they're advertising and telling you how wonderful they are and all that. Well, just remember somebody's paying for that TV advertisement,
Yeah.
and that somebody is going to be their clients. So if you can find a reputable contractor who has good reviews online, who has been in the business for more than a minute, and somebody else maybe has used them. Talk to if you have some real estate friends, talk to your real estate friends, ask them. I mean, going to a realtor. Realtors are a wealth of information. I
Mm.
mean, especially the ones who are out there, really, really managing, you know, a dozen or more, maybe 15, 18 transactions, in a 6-month period of time. These guys and gals know what's going on. They know who's good and they know who isn't. So just take a few minutes. It's not that complicated to go online and look at reviews on two or three different sites for 15 to 30 minutes. And especially if you're looking at paying somebody several $1,000s to do something, do that work. I mean, that's important to make sure you're getting the right firm.
Yeah. No, I love that. What are some kind of red flags that you have seen that maybe someone wouldn't be trustworthy, a contractor wouldn't be qualified, trustworthy, that you need to say, it just this doesn't make me feel right. Anything come to mind with that?
Yeah, I can tell you without mincing words. And I'm just going to say this to anybody who might be listening to this. If you have an issue that you're having looked at by a contractor and they want to sit down at the kitchen table or wherever and start talking to you about, yeah, here's what I saw, like we can fix it. But this is a $30,000 problem, and here's why. And they just basically tell you how, the sky is going to fall,
Mhm.
and you give a little pushback. And next thing after 30, 40 minutes, they've whittled it down to $26,000. And then after another 30 minutes of haggling, they've whittled it down to $22,000. And
Mm.
after they've just beat you to death, talking to you incessantly, you finally signed a contract at, $19,000. Those are big red flags.
Yeah.
Don't sign that contract. Anybody who comes to your house or to a property that you're investing in and starts out at a super high number, and by the time the conversation is over an hour and a half later. They've dropped that price by 25-30%. That's a big red flag.
Hmm.
And I can tell you that I see that in this industry. And not only do I see it, and somebody thinks that they got a good deal because they whittled it down from 30,000 to $19,000, then we go in and take a look at it and say, well, really, this was about an $8,000 job.
Mm.
So that would be the biggest red flag. The minute they start dropping that price significantly. Look, everybody's got a little bit of fat in their price. Okay, it's one
Mm.
thing if somebody can knock 500 bucks off, but they keep moving down where it's significant dollar amounts. That is a big red flag, and I would stop that conversation cold.
Hey guys, this is Brett Snodgrass with Simple Quarters. I want to let you know that you can earn passive income with a company that you can trust. If you're looking for a safe and reliable way to earn a fair return on your hard earned money, at Simple Quarters, we make it easy for you to invest passively. No work, no hassle, just steady returns. You don't have to buy a house. You don't have to fix anything. You don't have to hire a team or hire contractors. You really just want to earn a return on your investment. Then I would love to chat with you. We have a proven track record with great references. Your money should be working for you, and with Simple Quarters, you can invest confidently with a team that delivers results. You can email me at brett@simplequarters.com. You can check out our website, simplequarters.com. You can even text me on my local cell phone number at 812 216 8602. 812 216 8602. Again, I'm talking about earning an extremely passive income with a trusted company. Email me or text me today. Let's chat soon. Obviously, a lot of investors, Indianapolis investors, listening to this, and we're all trying to just not make some of the common mistakes. So this is what this podcast is about: is educating people, and not so we don't make some of the same mistakes over and over again. One of the things that I see investors do more than anything is, we're always trying to save money. We're always trying to um, I wouldn't say maybe cut corners, but we're trying to, do everything within a budget, and especially on expensive repairs. Anything that you might relate to those investors out there when it comes to, they're repairing the house, they want to save money, they want to do it the cheapest that they can, right? Because they're looking at a piece of paper trying to make a certain margin there, but sometimes that's not always the best. And can you explain a little bit about some of the mistakes on investors trying to save money when it comes to some of the bigger ticket items?
Sure. And we get asked that question quite a bit. And the first school of thought on that would be, what's your long-term plan for this property? I mean, are you planning on owning it and renting it out for, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years? Are you looking at flipping it? I mean, what are your plans for that particular property? When we go in and look at something, if there's as I said at the beginning, we deal in foundation repair, waterproofing, and mold remediation. Clearly, if you're talking about mold, the mold has to be rectified. I mean, there's no shortcut on mold. Um, Getting rid of mold is not an expensive issue. I mean, we spray it, and it's gone. The bigger problem with that is identifying what caused the mold in the first place.
Hmm.
So if it's in a crawl space, and if that crawl space doesn't have a ground cover on it. Obviously moisture comes up from the ground. It's trapped in a crawl space. Through the seasons, it's cold, it's hot, and next thing you've got some mold growing on the wood, of the floor. So we want to figure out what caused the mold. We don't want to just treat the mold. You got to figure out what caused it. And so if there's a downspout that's come undone, or that's overflowing in a corner and water seeping in that way. Okay, so we want to fix the source of the problem. That in and of itself is going to save you a ton of money in the long term, because you can spray mold and it's going to come back 8 months later if you didn't figure out what the source was.
Right.
So a quick fix there is not something that you want to do. You got to solve, because in the long run it's going to save you money, right?
Hmm.
Fix the downspout, fix the source of the water. If you need to get the crawl space covered, then do it. So that's number one in solving a problem, and that's not an expensive fix. If you've got a foundation issue, we're going to look at you and say, okay, here's what we can do short term. This will solve the problem right now. And here's an example of that. You've got a washer and dryer in a first floor laundry room, and the floor is shaken, and it's indented, and you've figured out, well, the washer's been leaking for quite a while and it's rotted out the floor underneath. We can go in and fix that floor and stabilize it for right now. But if it's been happening for a long time and the joists down below have also gotten wet and now they're soggy and it's a problem, what do you want to do? Do you want us to just, replace that flooring and stabilize it for the time being? Or do you want to also let's fix these beams and let's, make sure it's done. But we'll tell you there's different ways to do that depending on what you want to do. But I always believe that being penny wise and pound foolish is not a good way to proceed in investment. I mean, if you've got an item where it's going to cost you $3,000 to fix it correctly versus $1,200 to do a short term quick fix, you're being penny wise but pound foolish. I mean, get it fixed right the first time, and then you're not dealing with it 6 months, 8 months, 18 months later. Um, the same thing with waterproofing. Oftentimes, and in the vast majority of the time, even though that's one of our core businesses, people are afraid, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to put a whole waterproofing system in the basement, which happens, but the majority of the time it's fixing the source of the water and it stops the problem, and you don't need a whole basement waterproofing system. You just got to figure out where that water is coming from. There's only three places water can come from. It can come up from under the ground, it can
Hmm.
come in from the side, from the wall, or it can come from a broken pipe. I mean, and identifying where that source of water is, fixing that problem, then you can figure out what you got to do to move forward. But anybody ever comes in and wants to spray for mold and they tell you, yep, we solved it and all that, it's good, and they didn't find the source, not a
Hmm.
good sign.
Yeah, no, definitely. I've definitely had that. Mold comes back every spring.
Yes. Yeah. Fix the source. Fix the source. Keep those gutters up and operating and cleaned out.
Yes, no, definitely. Um, do you have and maybe just a couple of last questions, and then I'll let you obviously just share a little bit more about Hitman Solutions because I know you guys have been in business. Well, I know your owner Bill has been in the business, construction business for a long time, and he has just a vast knowledge of the three core businesses that you guys do: foundation, mold, and water. But a couple other just last questions here is when you get two or three different quotes from contractors, how do you know that you're comparing like apples to apples? Because yeah, you might have stuff all over the board, but how can someone know that they're doing the same types of jobs or apples to apples or yeah, what does that look like? Because I've had quotes and one guy will want all this done and one guy will want this minimal stuff done or just spray it. I don't know. So how can you protect yourself so you're comparing the same itemized bids?
Well, we run into that, Brett, every day because we work with realtors. So you've got, someone representing the buyer, somebody representing the seller. An issue comes up, and the seller wants to do the bare minimum to fix it. The buyer wants to go to the nth degree to make sure that everything's done and even more. And so that's where we come in to say, this is what needs to be done to fix the problem. So let's say you've got a you've got a wet basement problem that's been identified. Maybe there's stains where the inspector can see that there's been water intrusion in the past, um, and so the seller will get a quote, and the buyer might come back and say, yeah, I'm concerned that that's really going to address the problem, because you're talking about just repainting the walls there, and this was an old problem, and we don't have any proof that it's not going to happen again, or we think the sump pump needs to be replaced because that's where the water originally came from, whatever.
Hmm.
So you get a quote, and as I said earlier, the vast majority of our transactions are active real estate transactions. And so they'll want a second quote, and maybe they call us for a second quote, and we come out, and maybe our quote is $700 higher. So the seller immediately wants to say, well, I want to take the first quote. It's less money. And the buyer's like, no, I want to take this quote because I think they're doing a better job
Hmm.
because their scope of service is better than what the seller's contractor had said. So that's where you get into comparing apples to apples.
Hmm.
So, and this is really important for folks who are investing in property to understand. You want to make sure that you are comparing the same scope. If you've got two different contractors bidding on a job, and you want to know, is this fair? Like as I said a minute ago, if let's say that my company, Hitman Solutions, is the second company to give a quote, and we're told that the other company beat us on price. Okay, I would like to see their scope of service. And it's not because I want to see what they're charging you. I need to make sure that they are making the same recommendation and doing the same repairs that we have quoted
Hmm.
for the customer, because they may have cut something out that we would say, you know what, if you cut this particular piece out of the pie, here's what's going to happen again in 18 months. You're going to be right back to where you started from. So it's super important to make sure that you are comparing apples to apples. Now, if everything is the same, and somebody, beat us on price, they're $500 or $700 less, then we need to really look at our margins and say, okay, can we beat this price?
Hmm.
And if we can, we will. If we can't, we'll say, hey, we really can't figure out how they're doing it at that price, because we know what the cost of the materials are, we know what the cost of labor is. And so I'm a little concerned that somebody's offering something at that price because we know in the industry what those costs should be. But it's very important to get a second quote. Very important to make sure that you are comparing apples to apples.
No, I love that. I love that. It's great. Well, Mike, as we wrap up the Indie Investor podcast on today's show, tell us a little more about Hitman Solutions. And I know that we have a new relationship, professional relationship, and I just want to hear more, yeah, just about what Hitman Solutions and what kind of maybe some of the differentiators with Hitman Solutions versus other foundation or mold or water companies out there.
Sure. Yeah. And thanks, Brett. I am very bullish on our company, and it isn't just because I work at Hitman Solutions, but I'll tell you why. When I went to work for this company, Bill Verhonik, who is our GM and co-owner, Bill made a comment to me when I was being interviewed, and he said, Mike, nobody in central Indiana knows more about foundation repair and basement waterproofing than I do. And then he went on into some other subjects, and that really stuck in my craw. And I wanted to give him a little pushback, and I wanted to know, like, how can you make a bold claim like that? And so I did. I asked him point blank, Bill, you say that nobody else in central Indiana knows more than you do, in these areas. How do you make that claim? And he said, well, when I started in this business 37 years ago, everybody who started with me has either retired or is dead. So literally no one knows more about foundation repair and waterproofing than I do. And I
Right.
thought, okay, that's fair. I appreciate the answer. But it speaks, all kidding aside, but it speaks to the fact that you've got decades of experience in this business. And like any other business, it changes with time. There are new products that come out. There are many more cost-effective ways to do things today than there were 20 years ago. And when you look at Hitman Solutions and the folks who work with us, we have, as I said a little bit ago, 5 full-time inspectors. If you include Bill, we've got 6. Collectively, these guys have almost 160 years experience in the business. They know what they're looking for. This is what we do. This isn't a side gig for us. Our our crews that do the work are full-time crews for us. They aren't subcontractors. This is what we do. We started this business specifically for people who were involved in real estate, realtors, real estate investors, because we know that time is of the essence. We know that when you're trying to have a successful transaction, you've got to get in when a problem is identified. You got to get it looked at, and you have to have it remedied so that you can move forward. Because oftentimes a lender isn't going to let you move forward until you fix whatever that issue is. But with us, I think a few things that differentiate us from some of our competitors in town is number one, our inspections are free. You got a problem, give us a call. We'll get out there, do an inspection. As I said earlier, we'll videotape for you, let you see what you can't see if it's in a crawl space, say. We'll explain the resolution to you, and then we'll go ahead and fix it for you.
Hmm.
And then we'll get paid at closing. This is something that we see all the time in this business. People realize that the house may have a problem, but they say, I don't have the money to fix it until I sell it.
Hmm.
So we'll go ahead and fix it, and then we'll get paid at closing. And that's a big issue in this industry because that solves a lot of problems to help that transaction continuing to move forward, and also make sure that the lender will sign off on it. So those are two variations that help. And then, as I said initially, just the experience that our company has. Also, go online and look. I mean, we're pushing I think 300 5-star reviews right now with Hitman
Awesome.
Solutions. We're very proud of that. We make mistakes periodically. It happens. They are few and far between. But when it happens, you want to make sure that you're dealing with a contractor like Hitman Solutions who's going to come out and figure out what it was that caused this problem and fix it. And fix it correctly. I mean, do a good job. The last thing we want is for somebody to go out there and say, "Oh gosh, I hired Hitman Solutions and did a horrible job, and I called them and they never called me back." You're not going to hear that from us. We
Right.
all live and work in this community. Our reputation is important to us. The quality of work we do is important to us, and the people who work with us, we genuinely have a team approach to this industry, and I think it bodes well, speaks well for us as far as our growth over the past several years. And the fact of the matter is, once somebody does business with us and they have a problem in the future, our callback from prior customers is super high. We do a lot of repeat business for people who are in the real estate investment community because they know they can trust what we do and our work is guaranteed.
That's awesome. Well, thank you. Thanks, Mike, for being on the podcast today. Really appreciate it, guys. Make sure you guys go check out Hitman Solutions. And beyond that, just making sure you're vetting your contractors. I mean, this is there's a lot of even negativity around. I'm in the investor world, and they always have something to say. But there's really good contractors out there, and if you find a good company and a good reputable company, make sure you stick with them and have your preferred contractor, preferred vendor list. Mike, just one last question is if anyone listening to this, they want to remember maybe just one thing from this conversation, what would you have it be?
I think the one thing that I'd ask people to remember from this conversation is what you just said. There are good contractors out there. And go online, vet these contractors yourself. That's how we come up with a preferred vendor list in our company. If you are looking for someone, maybe work that we don't do at Hitman Solutions, but you have a relationship with us or you want to create a relationship with us, give us a call because we've worked with contractors in every avenue as far as home services. And we'll tell you who we've used and who we think is good. We'll give you a few names, and at least you can go and then vet those folks. But definitely make sure that you know that you're dealing with a reputable contractor. That would be the number one thing that I'd like listeners to remember. And you can have confidence that if you call Hitman Solutions, that's exactly what you're going to get.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you, Mike Lawson, for being on the podcast today. Y'all, if you tune in, make sure you tune in next time for the Indie Investor Podcast, who's powered by our company, simplequarters.com. And we'll see you guys next time. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you. See ya.